Our study looked at the relationship between father absence and the age when kids become sexually active. For a fairly long time now, it's been a pretty well-established fact that kids who are raised in father-absent households tend to have earlier ages of first sexual intercourse than kids who come from traditional two-parent households. There's been a lot of speculation about why this might be, and much of that speculation has tapped into various attitudes that people might have towards what's obviously a very charged, a very controversial, and a very sensitive topic for many people. What our study really aimed to do was simply to take the most comprehensive look that we could at the situation, and what we ended up finding was that genes played a role. I think when people hear that genes are involved, a very easy misinterpretation or misconception to make is, oh my goodness, you're saying it's genetic. Are you saying the environment doesn't matter? That's not what we're saying at all. Obviously, the environment has a tremendous effect, and in fact, our study showed that most of the relationship between father absence and kids' sexual behavior was in fact attributable to major environmental variables that differ between all of the different sorts of families that we have in our society today. But what we also figured out was that previous research hadn't done a very good job of controlling for or accounting for this very messy, very complicated thing that we just put under the umbrella of environment. So one of the things that we did that was a little bit different in our study was we compared all of the people in the population we had to each other, but we also added in a different layer of comparison. What we tried to do was to compare people who shared as much of their childhood environment as we could think of. So people who shared their socioeconomic status, their educational opportunities, their cultural attitudes and expectations. These were all people who were from the same family. They were either siblings or cousins, and they differed in how closely they were related genetically, but they also differed in their personal experiences of father absence. The logic we used might be best illustrated through a comparison. So for example, we looked at a child who was raised in a traditional two-parent household whose parents then separated, and so that person had a younger sibling who was raised in a father-absent household. We figured that if father absence was having this direct environmental effect on kids' sexual behavior, that the one who grew up without a father would be transitioning into sexual maturity earlier than the one who grew up in the two-parent family household. But that if it was something else going on, that those people would look pretty similar. And in fact, what we ended up finding was that the more genes people shared, the more similar they were in their timing of sexual maturation, regardless of whether or not they had grown up with absent fathers. And likewise, the fewer genes people shared, the less similar they were, again, regardless of whether or not they had grown up in absent father households. I think what these findings do, more than anything else, is change the debate that we've been having over father absence and change the debate that we've been having over teenage sexual activity. This is an article that has generated a lot of controversy. It's generated a lot of attention, and I think ultimately that's really exciting because my hope is that it's going to spur on more research so that we can gain an even fuller picture of what's going on in this relationship.